Well, folks, we're back to episode, what is it now, 3 of the Let's Play for the Power Pack DLC. We're now at the point where I've had the chance to read some of the comments for episodes 1 and 2 now that those are out. So a couple of interesting thoughts. It seems that you do like this ongoing, just cover the full thing kind of approach, which I kind of like, because at least then it's like the most in-depth possible version of a review that you can do. And in terms of other advice or other recommendations or ideas that you folks had, one of them was about the camera placement on the screen. I put it in the top left. I'll probably still have it at the top left at the moment, but do we have a preference there? Would we prefer bottom left, bottom right, top right? I guess the only other place would be maybe bottom left. That would maybe kind of make sense, and then you can see the laps and the position, but it depends really. Let me know for episode 4. And apparently there are indeed 24-hour events in this DLC, rather than coming to the career mode. I couldn't recall which one it was, and I do have an idea for that as well. In fact, we'll talk about that as I do the race, rather than wasting time. So we've got the Mazda 3 Group 4 version in particular, the FL5, and the Elantra. Which one do we want to go for? I'm a big fan of this Civic, so I'm going to go for the Civic. And I don't recall if I've actually done any of these middle ground cars yet. We've done the double chili and the easy one, but I don't recall picking any of the middle ones as yet. So let's skip the practice as we usually shall. Oops, where are you going? End the practice. And so with the 24-hour races, I do have an idea for that, and again, let me know your thoughts, but it seems to me to make the most sense, because the problem that I've got is, I record these videos in kind of 2 different forms, in terms of this camera and the gameplay recording, and then kind of put it all together, render it, add whatever, editing is necessary, or whatever the case may be, so I can't just do it as a live stream. I could do a version of a live stream, but it wouldn't quite be like this format, so it wouldn't be the same. So I think what I might do for the 24-hour races in particular, and thanks to those of you who pointed out, I had already heard on the Discord, but again, thanks for pointing it out anyway, that you can kind of exit save in a weird kind of, almost seems like a glitch sort of way, where if you're in an endurance race, apparently you can quit the race, or not quit the race, but quit the game, but not quit the race, or something like that. I don't recall the details, and it will kind of save where you were. That's an idea, it's an option, but I feel like that's not as exciting. It's almost too easy doing it that way. So what I'm thinking is, if I do cover the 24-hour races, which, we're going to cover the whole thing, so I may as well, what I might do is actually do those as live streams, which also adds to the immersion even more of it actually being, a 24-hour live stream. So then it makes editing a lot easier for me. What we'll have to do, for bathroom breaks and grabbing food and stuff like that, we could just pause the race and you guys can have a break, I can have a break, whatever. And the break wouldn't be for very long anyway, just get straight back to it. And do something like, kind of like the real Le Mans, where they start super early in the morning. And yeah, I guess just try something like that, maybe. I guess I'd have to decide. The earlier I start, the better, really, because if I start super early in the morning, then I can finish early in the morning the following day, and I just feel like if I... Woo, straight off the track. if I start, for example, at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I have to finish the race at 5 o'clock in the morning, I feel like by that time I'm going to be so hanging at 5 in the morning, not wanting to be racing anymore. Whereas if I started at if I started even at midnight or something crazy like that, and then finished at the following midnight, I feel like that might almost be easier. Obviously, it's 24 hours no matter what, but I think you probably get what I mean. What other stuff was I going to talk about? There were 1 or 2 people who'd mentioned other topics that I was going to bring up as well. I can't recall what they were now. One of them was about other channels that I watch. A funny response that some bot or whatever had to me watching Nerdrotic. They weren't a fan of that. Oh well, you'll live. Or you won't, I don't really care. But those are kind of other channels that I watch that are nothing to do with games, nothing to do with cars, but just kind of a background entertainment sort of thing, which I enjoy. And those videos, you know, like live streams and stuff, they tend to be 2-3+ hours long anyway, and that's not the kind of thing I would watch, you know. Like, I wouldn't really expect somebody to watch these as standalone videos that I'm doing right now. Maybe some of you do, but I would imagine most of you have either done the races already or are just kind of interested in it and have this playing in the background. If you do watch it, then fair play, but I certainly wouldn't myself. But it did bring up the thought to me of kind of a almost like a Q&A style of asking in a non-live stream way questions which I would discuss my version of, or my answer, so on this occasion channels that you watch, and then you guys can drop yours down below. And obviously in a 24-hour race it would be a live version of that. So for me, I watch, as I said, stuff like Nerdrotic. I don't tend to watch some of the other channels that are like the guests, like Heel versus Babyface and various others on that show, or Ryan Kinnell. I tend to watch Nerdrotic because they all come together for the live shows on there anyway. In terms of other stuff, I know that more than a few of you will be a fan of this guy. Maybe not all of his stuff, but you'll definitely know of his stuff, which is Meat Canyon, who does the grotesque cartoons, which of course I love. Like the Hidden Formula Krabby Patty with SpongeBob, you know, spoiler alert, making burgers out of himself and stuff like that. Even if you don't know who he is, you've definitely seen some of his animations before. But he also has a second channel, Papa Meat. In fact, he's got multiple channels that he appears on, and he also excuse me, he covers topics which kind of interest me as well. I hadn't actually realised because I was talking that we've gone to lap 3, so I'll end it there. We are second, which, yeah, that's fine, I'm not that bothered. It's not by much anyway. I expected, obviously, to drop. But, yeah, he's got a second channel called Papa Meat, where he does, like, ranking pizzas or creepypasta stuff, and he does a podcast as well with Wendigoon. I wanted to actually submit, because some of you, again, know that I like to write as well. I've done 3 novellas and self-published them through Amazon. And I wanted to submit those, because obviously, copyright aside, there's no point in writing stories if nobody's ever going to see them or read them, because it's not like I do advertising pushes for those books or anything like that. So I'd like people to at least enjoy them, and then if somebody actually wanted to support it by buying the physical version, then of course they could do that. So I wanted to submit one or all of my stories to their podcast, Creepcast. But you have to go on the Reddit page for it, and I've been on Reddit technically for years and years, but I have like no karma whatsoever because I don't care about Reddit and I never use it. So I don't have any rights to post on there. I know some of you like to use Reddit for like Gran Turismo and stuff. From what I hear, I don't think I'm a hugely popular person on the Gran Turismo Reddit. Oh no, I don't care. But yeah, I would have liked to have posted my stories on on the Creepcast one, but hey, if I can figure out a way of getting the karma up without just posting random rubbish on people's pages, because I don't really want to do that just to get the score higher, but it seems like that's kind of the main, if not the only way of actually getting Reddit karma or something, I don't know. It's just one of those websites and one of those social media platforms that if you even consider it social media, probably not. I'm sure the people who use Reddit don't consider it social media. I just never really got into it. You know, I get the idea. I get why it would be appealing to people, but for the most part, I do so many other things on so many other websites. I've only got so much time to be doing stuff. But yeah, what other channels do I watch? And I will be reading the comments, as always, to see which ones you like to watch, because I know some of you obviously will watch other Gran Turismo stuff, and I have had people ask in the past, why don't I watch, like, you know, I talk so much about Gran Turismo and Forza and all of these things, so like, who do I watch? Do I watch anyone? Do I watch, you know, Super GT, AR12, whoever? I know of them. I've had interactions with various ones of those guys in the past. Some of them have shown support for certain ideas I've had, or not ideas, but certain opinions I've had, even, like rants in the past. I remember Super GT put a comment about he was in agreement with one of my rants about Gran Turismo ages and ages ago. JM, in the more real-world sphere, he's commented on stuff as well, which is always nice to see. But I never really do any collab stuff, and I know YouTube's trying to kind of push collabs a bit more at the moment, but it's never really bothered me that much, and I don't know, I feel like my content doesn't really work in a collab sense. It's not like I do this sort of thing usually. I don't really do like gaming with friends or like a show. I love the idea of doing like a podcast, and I actually have had an idea which I know I could get at least a couple of episodes done, and I'm not going to divulge too much so that nobody else steals the idea. But there's a podcast series which I would quite like to do, which I know, and this is the quandary that I've got, and some other channels have it as well, but I certainly do, and if you look at my views you can see that this is the case. There are so many ideas that I have that I want to do, and this is the whole reason why the members section exists, that I just know are going to be buried. And I'm amazed, to be honest, that episode 1 of this series has got, at least as of right now when I'm recording this one, over 5,500 views, which, let's be honest, that's pathetic for a channel of this size, but I'm amazed that it got that many. I thought it would get like 500 or 600 views, honestly, because so much of the stuff that I do just gets absolutely buried by the algorithm. And it's because, and I've said this before, and I guess you could loop this back around to being even more advice for people. In fact, a chap that I've known for ages, family friend, recently said to me, did I have any advice for doing a YouTube channel, or do I even do like training courses or something? And I said to him that if I had to start what I do now instead of back when I did, I don't know if I would succeed now, to be honest, because it's so much harder now to grow a channel, especially organically, than it was back then. There's so many bots. Everything is just catered basically to what 12-year-olds want to see on the platform for the most part. There's so much slop, so much AI. I have nothing against AI. I mean, for those of you who don't know, and some do know, I have an AI channel. And the angle that I'm taking with the AI is that I suddenly had the idea, well, hang on a second, you can use places like Suno to create AI music, which by definition doesn't have copyright, even though Suno tries to get you to pay a subscription to have exclusive rights. Good luck, Suno, taking me to court about that, because you have no rights for it. AI has no rights by definition, but that's by the by. Even if it did have rights, you know, whatever. But as it happens, I thought, well, hang on, all these people struggle to find like copyright-free music, including myself, especially for gaming stuff. So why don't you just use AI to make copyright-free music in the style of like old Gran Turismo kind of themes and stuff? So that's what I started to do, and I made the channel. It's only a small channel, I knew it wouldn't grow like crazy. HSG Sound, it's called. And I still use many of those songs. There's over 100 songs on there already. I plan to do more in future, but I'm not exactly sure when, because I wanted to do like 100 videos, a couple of montages, or I guess compilations more so, and then just see how it goes. A couple of them have done pretty well, but again, it's like that new channel problem. And this goes back to the advice that I've given to people in the past about, like, do what you enjoy. And the problem is everyone says that, but it's true. And in fact, now it's true more than ever, because if you do something on YouTube just to try and succeed and make a living out of it, you're probably going to burn out pretty quick. Unless you really are a master at marketing and, like, pay for botted views and promote everything through YouTube and, you know, essentially spend more money than you're making to begin with, in the kind of vain hope that it will go somewhere, and maybe it will, maybe it won't, then yeah, you could get somewhere. And organic growth just seems so much more difficult now, even for an established channel. And there are some people who seem to be doing well, but the simplest way to describe it to people, and I put this on Twitter ages ago as a visual graph, is if you imagine that your channel, I think I've said this in a video before as well, like one of the wrap-up videos, I think it was for 2023 or 2024. Imagine that you've got a channel reviewing fruit, and you really enjoy what you're doing, people really enjoy your content, it's organically growing, no pun intended, and you start to notice, because you check your analytics every so often, that banana videos are doing better than all of the other fruit. So you think, well, okay, people clearly like the banana videos, all of them are doing pretty well, but that one's, it's kind of doing a bit more special. So you think, okay, I'll do some more banana-based videos then, if people like that. And then obviously, because people enjoy it, the algorithm pushes it to more people. But then the problem is, the other videos you start to notice aren't doing quite as well now. And you think, well, I guess it's okay because people like the banana videos. But then you notice, out of the banana videos, people start to prefer, like, the videos where the bananas are just ripe. Like that really narrow window where they're just right. The right shade of yellow and the right taste. Okay, well, I guess I'll focus in more on that. Now, if we pause that thought for a moment, what shall we do next? I'm not necessarily going to jump onto the next one, so let's go up here to the GTI. To Eiger. And which car are we going to go for? Peugeot, Mini, or the Fiat. Excuse me. I'm feeling lazy. Let's go for the Peugeot. So you start doing that particular type of banana video. And then those videos do even better. And now, fast forward 6 months or a year or however long, your channel is only making just ripe, particular yellow, exact length, certain thumbnail, banana videos. And they're being pushed like crazy because the algorithm sees that that's what people want. Except now, you get to the part where the algorithm doesn't understand because it's an AI that doesn't understand fundamentally anything. It understands what it's taught. The problem with that is it doesn't understand the concept of boredom, because not everyone is going to want to watch the same exact ripe banana video with the same thumbnail at a certain length over and over and over and over again. So now you've got two options. Either you're going to stop making those banana videos because people aren't watching them as much and now your channel is dead because you've decided to do it that way, or you can do the obvious thing, which is, well, I'll try the other fruit again. Except the problem is now your channel has become so pigeonholed by the algorithm that as soon as you make anything other than that exact type of banana video, it tanks. And that is exactly what this channel is at this point. And if you look at the certain types of videos, the certain views, you can see it, like literally in real time, which is why I'm amazed that this, or at least the first video so far of this series, is doing so well. And I think the only reason, or maybe two, the two reasons why it's doing so well is, number one, exclusivity breeds desire. The best way to make somebody want something is to make it in a finite supply, like a rare car. It makes people suddenly want it that much more. And if you make a DLC paid, it has the same effect, because not everyone is in the position to pay for it, not everyone is going to want to pay for it, which means that gameplay of said DLC is going to be more desirable to watch. So that's working in my favour. You could say the same thing about every channel doing it, but certainly that's a factor. The second factor is, and I think this one's probably more important when it comes to the algorithm, because what I just said is very much an organic thing, which is great, I have no problem with that. Where the algorithm comes in, though, is these videos are like 40 minutes long, and consequently, I don't know how many ads you get in the video, but the algorithm knows it can put more ads in there because it's a longer video, and you know it's going to try and maximize that. I'm certainly not going to complain about that because this is a business first at the end of the day, and as I've said many times before, if it weren't for making content, I probably wouldn't play Gran Turismo anywhere near as much, to be honest, anymore. I don't even know if I'd have bothered with this DLC, because this deep into the game, I mean, I'd have come back for sure for Spec 3, but I don't know if I'd have bothered doing this. I'd have probably watched a couple of people play it and think, that looks a bit samey. Like, I get what they're doing with the qualifying and all that, but I don't think I'd have paid 25 quid for this if I wasn't covering it on the channel. And in a very similar way, even the version of the game that I buy is actually for that same reason. I buy stuff like the early access editions, or collector's edition, like for GT7, where you get the extra credits and the cars and all that kind of stuff. And I don't do that as a flex. I know that saying that sounds like a flex, but the reason why I do it, and any of you who are my fellow content creators or thinking about it probably know the reason why, is because, and I'll leave that there, it gets you ahead. And those extra millions, the extra cars, it immediately gets me ahead of time in the game. And certainly if you can get an early access version of the game, so that then you can start getting that content out quicker. And obviously, because it's part of the business, you can have it as a business expense, justifiably so. It doesn't make stuff free, but it certainly helps when it comes to taxes. And yeah, it makes more sense from a business perspective. Prior to doing YouTube, and even for games that I buy outside of YouTube, I almost never buy expanded, early, collectors, special, none of these editions. The only times that I ever do that is like when it's years down the line and that version is now like the cheap one, like Skyrim or Fallout or whatever it is this weekend, where it's like the whole bundle for significantly less money. I never do that at full price unless it's for this kind of thing. So Forza Horizon 5 or GT7, whatever, Gran Turismo, those kind of circumstances I do. So, what kind of time are we doing? 20 minutes. Interesting. 20 minutes, we're entering... What is this now? I can't remember. Have I done one race or two already? Is this... I want to say this is the second race, isn't it? I think it is. But yeah, if we stay on track for roughly 3 races per episode, and obviously this is where the 24-hour stuff and the later events are going to change things up, because if the events are, like 5 laps, even not like a full-on endurance, but even like 5 laps of the Nürburgring, I didn't even notice that I qualified first, but makes sense with the car. And it also seems, I get the impression from what some of you have said, and also from my experience with qualifying, that when you pick the car that's the easiest, it also maybe affects the AI difficulty as well. It's like tied into it. That might be an obvious thing to say, but I hadn't really noticed that. I was just assuming, and maybe my assumption was correct, that it's just a more challenging car choice. But it seems to me like the AI is different as well. Because just having a difference of like 20 horsepower doesn't make you drop from like first place qualifying, first place race like this, to suddenly being like 15th in the Civic. and that kind of like from 15th to 7th. Just from having a car with slightly less power, you're not going to see that kind of a difference. So it seems to me like it changes the AI as well. So if you guys wanted to confirm that for those who have looked further into it, or just noticed something that maybe I haven't. And that's one of the great things about the community as well. It's one of the great things about the Discord for the channel also. Any creator who's worth their salt will not only admit, if you want to use that term, but certainly embrace the fact that they are way stronger with their community behind them than a solo journey. Which is ironic, given my natural tendency to be very much a loner when it comes to creating content. I don't particularly, want to collab. I have zero desire to have somebody editing for me or anything like that. I like doing it all myself. But beyond that, ironically for somebody who feels that way, I really value the community side of the channel, because there are things that I might miss, or news that I might not have seen. And it's almost like not a hive mind, but it does feel like a collective brain where, because some of us notice something that the others haven't, it helps all of us, which I think that's, if you think about it, fundamentally that is what a community should be. That is how it should work. And obviously there are some idiots here and there, but to be honest, because the views are so bad in comparison to what they should be, I don't think it's really worth the bot's time most of the time to really be here on the channel. Occasionally I'll get some of those weird comments that some of the big channels get where they just spam stuff. And YouTube, I mean, they're not great about dealing with that, but they try here and there too. But yeah, you don't, or not you don't, you know you've made it on YouTube when you start getting haters and bots and stuff like that. In my case, yeah, I guess that was a while back, and then it's kind of gone downhill a bit. But hey, that's YouTube for you. And at least the channel is technically still growing all the time. It doesn't really look that way in terms of the views, but at least on paper, it is technically bigger than it's ever been every day, which is cool. It's better than the channel getting smaller, I guess. I'd be curious to know as well, and I've seen a rough idea of this from some comments, how much cash, aside from maybe the races themselves, you get for doing this. Because I noticed some of the bonuses, like we got, what was it, the $250,000, I think, so far. It's the only bonus I'd unlocked, focusing obviously on the main hub of races before I branch out. So there's a $250,000, I noticed one of them, it looks like 1,000,000 credits, I think it is. There are some car tickets as well, so it depends on the car. I mean, I've already got all the cars in the game aside from the 6 new exclusive ones. So if it's something else, I'll probably end up selling it anyway, like a Group C car or something like that. But I'd be curious to know how much cash you actually get in addition to the 5 million that they quote-unquote give you at the start as well. But it's always the way in games. When you've finally got so much cash, it's when you now own everything anyway, and you don't really need that much cash anymore. It's always annoying. I think on top as well of the sentiments that I've asked about in the past couple of episodes of, has this playthrough changed your mind for or against your experiences with this DLC, etc., all of that kind of stuff put together. What do you feel like at this point? Episode 3. Like for me, I haven't seen anything so far that makes me suddenly flip around and think, oh, this is awesome. I guess as we progress into the higher level events or more difficult events or however you want to refer to it as, that could then change it. And we are still in, this kind of central hub, like I said. So things could change, but we'll have to see. So, yeah, so 7 races done, so it is 2 so far. Where shall we go next? We've got another Civic race. I don't really fancy, like, JDM kind of stuff. We could do another muscle event, I guess. We've got another Porsche. Let's go for that one. Hey, yeah, perfect way. 25 minutes in, as I poke you in the eye. 25 minutes in, 1 lap of the Nürb. Perfect. Let's go for it. So, we've got the RS. That's the one I was talking about in episode 1, I think it was. AMG, really not a fan of the AMG GT line. Way too normal looking in my opinion. Or an M4. You know what? Since it's the Nürburgring, let's go for the challenge. See what kind of a difference it makes. Because this is one of those circuits where the sheer amount of time that so many of us have on this track, certainly myself included, in various games, this should be a real test of how challenging the AI is. Again, regardless of the car. So we've got sports mediums, 1,300 kilos, just under 380 horses. So not far off like a Group 4 car, basically. I don't recall how that compares to the actual Group 4 version, but it sounds fairly similar to some of them. Maybe a little bit lighter if you're talking that kind of power. Maybe more like 1,340 to 380. Sports mediums, that's never bad. And again, as I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, driving the M4, because the ones that I drove, and obviously these are all on the channel if you want to watch them, the M3 that I drove of the E92 shape was bright green, like stripped out, roll cage, wing, everything. Still had the flappy paddle gearbox and all that, not a manual version. And then I drove the M4, which was the competition. I seem to recall it being in, I think it was Yas Marina Blue, but I'm not sure, I could be wrong there. And I drove the M2 competition. I seem to recall doing a game versus real episode with the M2 versus Gran Turismo 7, and from what I remember, I think it, oh actually, I bet you were shouting at the screen like, skip it! Yeah, I totally forgot. I was thinking like, wow, skipping that race, the hour's going to take a while. Just brain farted. Now, qualifier. Okay, so it is more. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Do I want to qualify? Just under half an hour. Let's just get a bit of a feel for the car. Okay. Bit of a slip slide. Nothing too bad though. Yeah, this handles fine. Little baby Group 4 car. I'm definitely not going to do full qualifying for this one. Partially because I actually do want to, I mean the Civic race was pretty close, but I do want to start literally from the back and see how much ground we can make up, because that in conjunction with the harder AI, but on a track that I love, plus you've got a nice long lap, kind of turns it into a sort of a baby version of One Lap Magic, almost. Okay, cool. I'm not going to qualify, because I'm edgy like that. The good old pig's head. I would like to go to the Nürb someday. I bet plenty of you guys have. I know a few people who have taken like their Ford Focus RSs and various other cars there. I'd love to go, but the problem that I've got is literally just driving any of my cars there would cost so much money because of the fuel that they use. It's, I guess, the first time really that I've had 3 vehicles, all of which I don't necessarily want to change. Like usually I get bored of cars pretty fast. But at the moment, I really like my 3. And, yeah, they're all American. And they're all V8s. And they're all big. And they're all heavy. So, driving from here in the UK, West UK as well, all the way across the UK to the Nürburgring, that would be expensive. Real expensive. My daily, the Navigator, does 17 to the gallon average and about 21, 22 motorway at 60 miles an hour. My 2 classics, Abe and Bonnie. Obviously Abe, the 68 Lincoln Continental, he does 10 to the gallon, 12 motorway, if you're lucky. And if there's no headwind, and if you're behind a lorry, doing 55. And Bonnie somehow has better fuel economy than Abe. But Bonnie will do about maybe 13 to the gallon. But she's a 67 Pontiac Bonneville hearse. And the fact that she can even get double digits is pretty impressive, because it's 21 foot long, 2.5 tons, 7 litre V8 from 60 years ago, near enough. It's amazing that it does more than like 6 to the gallon. But yeah, 13, it's not too bad. I GPS verified her speed the other day, because I've got one of those, you know, the phone app that verifies it. And I actually downloaded that app back when I built the Rolls. Because the High Roller, the Mitsubishi Speedo at the time, wasn't connected. I can't recall the details, but the Speedo wasn't connected, I don't think, in terms of mileage or something. It was like registering the speed but not the miles. And then obviously the Rolls-Royce Speedo didn't work anymore. So I was using the GPS basically to clock up how many miles I'd done in the car. And also because it had no fuel gauge, so I needed to know roughly between fuel pits, if you will. And so I downloaded this GPS app. I think you could do 0 to 60 runs on it as well, or something like that. But I was curious how quick Bonnie is. Because she's got that old car thing where the Speedo bounces around a little bit. And I already knew that to do like a 30 mile an hour zone, I need to do about 37 on the Speedo. So quite a large margin of error there. Which if you're going to have a margin of error, you better to be under what you're actually doing. But on the motorway, I do 65 on the Speedo. Which turns out to be pretty much identical to down in the 37 to 30 range, because 65 on the Speedo is 57. So I do 57 miles an hour on the motorway. So basically I do the same kind of speeds that most of like the big rigs are doing. Occasionally a rig will overtake me, but usually I'm pretty much lockstep with them, and I'll just get in behind a rig. In fact, I'm kind of explaining why she's probably doing 13 to the gallon, because I'm behind lorries all the time, so she's getting the slipstream. But yeah, I just do 57. I tend to go, ironically, I'll probably go the quickest of my 3 cars in the least economical one, which again, may or may not be a correlation, but I don't go crazy fast in Abe. I tend to do between 60 and 65 in him, so it's not like it's that much of a difference. The fastest I've ever had the Lincoln, or I guess I should clarify, the Continental to, is 95. And that's on all-terrain tyres and 60-year-old leaf springs. So that was an experience. He was getting a bit floaty around on the road. But in Bonnie, there's no chance in hell I'd ever take her anywhere near that kind of speed. Because of the aerodynamics of being a hearse with the extended roofline, she's very unstable. She's not too bad, funnily enough, in crosswinds. The Navigator is actually the bad one in crosswinds, and I think it's because the air suspension on the Navigator lifts when you drive the car. It like raises automatically, and that's a normal thing for the Navigator. But the problem is on the motorway, it means you've got loads of air going underneath the car, and because the Navigator is essentially shaped like a brick, it's, you know, flat-sided pretty much. So any crosswind, like at the moment it's fairly windy this time of year, and any crosswind, boy can you feel it. So sometimes lately I've been switching him into 4-wheel drive mode instead of rear-wheel drive, because another issue with the Navigator, not something which you would necessarily think a Navigator would have, but for any of you who have worked on or been around something like a Lincoln Navigator or a Ford Expedition, which is the same platform underneath, or even a Ford F-150, which is also the same platform, if you open the bonnet, it is shocking how far back the engine is. It's almost like in the dash, and there's a good probably nearly 3 feet between the front of the bumper and the front of the engine. It's just a giant gap, basically, with, you know, the fan and the radiator in there, and a huge thick bumper. And that's all well and good, but when you think about it, it kind of makes sense why the handling would be a bit more sketchy in high winds, because you've got, depending on the drive mode you're in, a rear-wheel drive, what started as a truck chassis, so not a huge amount of weight over the back end anyway. In my form, obviously an SUV, being the Navigator, but even so, it's still got way more weight over the front than the back, and the engine is quite far back as well. So you've really got, like, almost a front mid-engine, in a weird kind of way, rear-wheel drive on what was designed to be a truck chassis, or what is a truck chassis. So kind of makes sense that it would be not ideal for strong winds, which is kind of surprising because it weighs like 2.7 ton, so you'd think it would be crazy stable. But I have to say, as much as I love the Navigator, I don't recall having any stability issues in winds in the Escalade. And the Escalade was even bigger, so you'd think if that was going to happen, it would happen in that form. But I don't know, maybe I just didn't drive it in those kind of winds, I can't remember. And I will definitely say, when it comes to 4x4 comparisons, the most stable and safest feeling 4x4 I've ever had, and if any of you are considering like a cheap 4x4, or if your parents are looking for one and you're going to recommend something, Volkswagen Touareg. A lot of people are terrified of the Touareg, especially the one that I had, which had the V10. Obviously, it's understandable why people would be scared of stuff like that, and if something goes wrong, yeah, it would be expensive. But if you just forget the V10 and imagine like a V6 or whatever, it's such a good shape, and I would imagine the Porsche Cayenne is probably the same by definition because it's, again, the same platform, but it's such a stable car, and it's because the Touareg is not overly long. It's very wide and very heavy. A Touareg with 5 seats, and is about maybe 2 feet shorter, I think, than a Navigator, something like that. So it's way smaller. And this 5-seater 4x4, with roughly, like I said, the same weight, 2.7 ton, is way more stable. Obviously, it's full-time 4-wheel drive, which makes a difference. But even so, even if I switch the Navigator into 4-wheel drive, the Touareg is still definitely a more stable car, which is kind of crazy. And I think they even had the same size tyres. I think they were 275 profile, and they're the same front and back. So it's not like the Touareg had more grip or more weight grounding it or more downforce. They're pretty much on an equal footing to compare them. Before I got the Navigator, I was actually, I'd say considering, more like wishing, because realistically I knew it wasn't going to be a real option, but I so badly want to tick this particular car off of my ownership bucket list. But even by my standards as a daily driver, the fuel is just so bad, and that's a Hummer. I mean, anyone who knows me knows, of course, I want a Hummer at some point, and I doubt I'll ever get one, but I really want a Hummer H2. Also kind of from the Need for Speed Underground 2 era, or Midnight Club. But, you know, it's essentially an Escalade underneath. The 6-litre, I believe it's a Vortec engine, like the Escalade. And I think it's the same gearbox as well. Can't remember if the chassis is the same, because obviously, no, I don't think it can be, because the Hummer is definitely wider. Obviously the H1 is a massive car, but the H2 I think is wider as well. I don't recall that. But mostly because of its aerodynamics, the Hummer is just horrific on fuel. It does like 10 to the gallon average, which I know I say that having, you know, currently driving a car that does 10 as well. But I don't use that as a daily, you know? I've used Abe as a daily driver, but it's not exactly ideal. I do that when I had to. And just having a 10 to the gallon daily, yikes. And it's not even about whether or not you can, it's about whether or not you should, you know? But I do like the idea of one. I'd like to at least review one at some point, because obviously I reviewed the Escalade, reviewed the Navigator. You can't really not review the Hummer. And there are some other ones which I'd like to try out, you know, like a GMC Yukon. But it's an Escalade underneath, so, you know, it's kind of like reviewing the Ford Expedition. What's the point? It's the same underneath. That being said, I'd review an F-150. Did a couple of Dodge Rams as well in the series. First left-hand drive car I ever drove. Dodge Ram SRT10. Hell of a way to jump into left-hand drive cars, that's for sure. Kind of put me off, to be honest, initially. But it was more so because I just didn't like the Dodge Ram SRT10 rather than not liking left-hand drive cars. For the same reason that I said the Navigator feels weird. No weight over the back end, rear-wheel drive, and I mean, in the case of the Ram, it was even more exaggerated because you've got, obviously with an 8.3 Viper engine, so much weight over the front end, and next to no weight over the back. Yeah, it was very sketchy car to drive. It just felt like the back end was just floating around all over the place. And also don't see the point in a similar way to my favourite truck, the Celine S331 from Forza. Same platform as mine, funnily enough. I don't see why you would make a vehicle like that and make it rear-wheel drive. Like, I get it in some circumstances, you know, like this, for example, BMW M3 or an M4, of course it's going to be rear-wheel drive. You have the option of 4 maybe in newer cars, but at the end of the day, you want the car for, you know, the driving feel. But when you're talking about a high-performance SUV, you know, a utility vehicle first and foremost that's then also quick, well, surely you, A, need to be able to actually have grip in a vehicle like that, go off-road and not just spin up the wheels. And I'm aware that most people aren't taking a Ram SRT10 off-road, I know. But still, you'd like to at least know that you could, you know, get out of a ditch or tow something with it without just wheel spinning. And secondly, even if you forget the practicality side, just getting that kind of power down, the Viper, you know, 500 torque, 500 horses, 500 cubes, that's a hell of an engine, and you need to get that power down without wheel spinning. Same with the Celine. I bet the Celine Super Cab, it's got 150 horsepower more than my Navigator, but if I were to do, and this is actually something I'd love to do, but it's so expensive, I would love to buy all of the Celine parts and fit them on my Navigator, because they mostly, if not all, fit, including the supercharger. And basically the exhaust, the supercharger, and the intake I said the exhaust, yeah, but those take the Navigator, which is 300 horses, to the Celine, which is 450 immediately. And the torque goes from, I think, 370 to 500 foot-pounds. So very, very healthy increase. And I bet that if I were to do those things to a Navigator and put it in four-wheel drive, I bet it would end up quicker than the Celine, because of the four-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive advantage. Yeah, four-wheel drive, off the line. So we went from 20th to 13th. Not bad. And obviously, again, talking the whole time, my focus isn't exactly there, but even so, yeah, not bad. And if you look at the time difference, 50, just under 50 seconds ahead, I guess. Even if I wasn't talking, I don't know if I'd be on par with that. I don't think so. But interesting. And what's the time we're on? Wow. Lap of the Nürburgring. We're still not even 45 minutes. Not bad at all. So, I think I might save that replay for potential future reference. Interesting. So, if we jump back out to the menu, obviously we're going to roughly leave it there for now anyway, unless there's some kind of prize or something to pick up, but I don't think there is. Oh, actually, maybe there is now that I've said that. 4-star ticket. Cool. In fact, should we close out the video by doing the tickets? Might as well, eh? Not sure what I'll do next time. But yeah, now we've officially finished all... Oh, actually, no, we haven't. There's one more for the centre section, but almost done all of those. Cool. So, as we jump back out, with 8 races done, we're making good time and good progress. Let's have a quick look at what these prizes are. Don't look. That's a teaser of a review. So we've got the 3-star. I think this was from today's drive, wasn't it? And let's see if your luck is as bad as mine, because I always get whatever the worst prize is, pretty much. Yeah, not quite the worst, but close enough. And there's no way that you're going to tell me that it's random. It ain't random. You can tell it ain't random. Let's see what this one is. Probably, I'm going to predict the pile of coins. Wow. He gave me an EV instead. So a pile of ash instead of a pile of coins. Okay, so I'll probably sell that one. But yeah, that is it for this episode then. Hopefully you folks are still enjoying it. And yeah, I'll see you next time. First chance to drive on the Nürb. It did confirm the question that I had about the qualifying times. So yeah, see you next time, and thanks for watching.